Hotep, everybody. This is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network and host of the African History Network show. It is Sunday, August 11th, 2024, and we are live. Now, everybody's going to tune in because I have a beautiful sister with me right now. You've seen her on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You watch on Sirius XM. We have the one and only Reecie Colbert here, host of the Reecie Colbert show on Sirius XM. How you doing today, Reecie?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me. It's nice to be with you outside of Roland Martin Unfiltered. Yeah. So I appreciate the invitation.
Because Roland won't interrupt us. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for coming on today. Well, look, it's been a very busy day for both of us. We know since July 21st, it's been a whirlwind with Vice President Kamala Harris announcing she's running for president and President Joe Biden endorsing her. So yeah. I know you have been doing Reese's Receipts. I know you've been talking a lot about this on the Reecie Colbert show on Sirius XM and dealing with fact checking and attacking the disinformation surrounding her time as Attorney General of the state of California, as well as District Attorney in San Francisco. I've been doing that even going back to 2019, 2020 on the African History Network show as well, but you're deep into this. So I wanted to bring you on to discuss this today. Now, Reecie Colbert is a Sirius XM host. She's a best-selling author, advocate, and political strategist who empowers audiences through her unbossed and unfiltered approach. Renowned for political commentary and pop culture analysis, her influence extends to national networks and esteemed institutions. So not only is she on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and she's been on every week. How long have you been on Roland Show?
It has been almost 5 years now.
Okay, so I've been on 4 years. It'll be 4 years, October 20th. I've been on almost every Friday, but she's also been on different shows on MSNBC as well. Okay,
yeah, I made my rounds.
Yep, you made your rounds. Okay, so Reecie, let's start here. I know so there was. I'm going to pull up some articles here to provide some evidence, and I want you to flesh this out also. So one of the first criticisms of then Senator Kamala Harris came when you had the debate that took place in 2019. Okay. And she was on stage with Representative Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
Of Hawaii. Okay. And I'm going to pull up this piece here from politifact.com because I dealt with this at the time. And I see a lot of people still circulating an excerpt of the debate, and they're circulating this misinformation and don't provide any context for it. Okay.
Right.
So this piece right here from, and I'm going to turn on the screen share here in just a second. This piece right here from politifact.com really breaks it down and does some really good fact checking. And this is from 2019. Okay. And the name of this article, and I want everybody to write down the names of these articles. Please go research this. Proper documentation ends all conversation. As you know, as I say on the African History Network show, and you all know this, I tell you, you don't have to believe a word that I say. Go do your own research. And I provide you with this evidence. I want you to go read this. Okay. Were Tulsi Gabbard's attacks on Kamala Harris' record as California prosecutor on target. Okay. And here's for those that don't remember or haven't seen the disinformation circulating around. I'm just going to summarize it here. It talks about marijuana convictions in her time as state's attorney general. And Representative Tulsi Gabbard says Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president. She then talks about 1,500 people. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She made allegations of her blocking evidence, things of this nature. We'll come to that in just a minute. But this right here, Harris put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations. And then this, now the 1,500, the best research shows that 1,500 number figure came from an article from the Washington Free Beacon, which a February 2019 article from the Washington Free Beacon, which is a right-wing conservative online news website. The quote from the Washington Free Beacon says at least 1,560 people were sent to state prisons for marijuana-related offenses between 2011 and 2016, end quote, when Harris was California Attorney General. It says the data comes from reports from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, the CDCR. Okay, so go ahead and talk about this, because the way this was presented was misrepresented.
Right. Yeah. First of all, let me just say everything that Tulsi Gabbard said that night was a lie. It was a distortion, it was a complete fabrication or something along the lines, and it really relied on a couple of things. Number one, people's innate belief that anytime that you are citing statistics, particularly about Black people, that they're correct. But it also was part of a disinformation campaign that has been going on against Vice President Kamala Harris. So let's start with the whole marijuana prosecutions thing. So the 1,500 number actually relates to statewide, the numbers statewide across the entire state of California. These are prosecutions handled by independently elected district attorneys. The California Attorney General does not dictate local prosecutors' prosecuting habits in terms of whether they prosecute marijuana.
Exactly.
That also didn't indicate if that was marijuana possession or anything along those lines. It's just marijuana related convictions. You have to understand that a lot of times, even when you see a low level charge like marijuana, that could be, if somebody is doing jail time for it, it's probably because they pled down from a more serious offense. And so they kind of were like, all right, we'll take this easy win, right? And we'll put you in jail for marijuana. But the fact of the matter is, 93% of people who are in state prison in California are in there for violent offenses or because they have a history of violent, serious offenses. So the whole idea that all these people in jail in California, all these people that Kamala Harris locked up are people who are nonviolent offenders, just smoking weed, trying to get a blunt off, and here she comes, rounding them up to put them in jail, is just completely false. Now, in terms of her record when she was the district attorney of San Francisco, she actually had a more progressive record when it came to it. She did not charge simple marijuana possession charges. So again, if all you were doing was sitting up there smoking a blunt, you wasn't going to jail under Kamala Harris's watch. Now, if you were sitting up there dealing drugs and bumping people upside their head and you had other stuff going on, then maybe you got to plead down to simple possession. But over the course of her time as a prosecutor, as the district attorney, because she was also a prosecutor in Alameda County, but when she was a prosecutor, she specialized in crimes against women and children and more homicide cases. So when she was in Alameda County, she was not prosecuting marijuana charges. She prosecuted serious violent offenses. But as a district attorney, she actually, over the course of her time, I believe the number is, let's say, under 100. Okay, I think it's actually 45, but I don't have
45. Yeah,
45. There you go. Right,
1,956 marijuana convictions. Only 45 resulted in jail time.
Okay, so yeah, so 92. It's 92 right there. I knew it was.
Now this is I'm gonna come to this.
Okay, that's the attorney general. Okay, so yeah, when she was district attorney, it was like 45. But the reality is, like I said, she was more progressive when it came to marijuana charges. She didn't charge simple possession. She actually established this program called Back on Track, which was about getting people who, by the way, people were arrested for all kind of drugs back then. I mean, crack, you had heroin, you had all kind of stuff going on, meth, and so it was not just like the only drug enforcement was about marijuana, but there were people who were facing 2 decades of sentencing for crack, 2 grams of crack, or not 2 decades, but a decade. And she got those people out of jail into job training, into jobs, into, educational programs and things of that nature. And she reduced the recidivism rate to 10% for people who participated in her program. And so this notion that she was some sort of zealot when it came to marijuana is just not true.
Yeah, that was a diversionary program that she instituted. Am I
Right,
correct
right.
on that? Right.
That
Yeah.
is correct. And that's something that she took statewide. When she was attorney general, she actually established a new division. It's called the Division of Recidivism and Reentry, DR3 for short. And that really focused on reducing the recidivism rate. For people who don't know what that is, that means people who return to jail, commit another offense. So a lot of what we see in the prison population are actually repeat offenders. And so one of her initiatives was to try to prevent reoffenders, prevent recidivism. And that was a much bigger focus as opposed to crime and punishment, just trying to get people in jail for as long as possible. That was not her position at all. And one more thing I'd point out too, actually two more things I'd point out. When she was the district attorney, she actually expanded what was called neighborhood courts up to the number 12. So before there was 9, she added 3 additional neighborhood courts. And these are kind of like community tribunals for basically diverting smaller cases out of the criminal justice system into more community-led courts. No jail time. People did community service and things of that nature. So thousands of cases were diverted to community courts, where they were called neighborhood courts, during her time as district attorney. And then as district attorney, the first order of business that she did when she was sworn in was she changed the 3 strikes enforcement to not seek, if people aren't familiar in California, if you do 3 strikes, if you get 3 strikes, then you go to jail for life.
Felonies.
That was that.
3 felonies.
Yeah. 3 felonies. So if you, it doesn't, but it didn't matter what the third one was. It was 3 strikes you're out, period. So when she came into office, one of her first orders of business was to change the way that her office enforced that, and not seeking, that 3rd strike per se, or, you know what I'm saying? If it was a non-violent offense or something more minor.
Right. Exactly. So she had a lot of diversionary programs, and, this really gets misrepresented. And I see disinformation, social media pages that just keep playing the excerpt from Representative Tulsi Gabbard, provide no fact checking, provide no context, anything like that. I want to go back quickly here to this piece from politifact.com. And if we look at this here, it goes on to say, the agency's data shows there were 1,883 admissions to state prison on marijuana offenses during the years Kamala Harris was Attorney General. There were another 92 admissions for crimes related to hashish, a drug made from cannabis resin. Notably, the figures dropped dramatically during Harris' tenure, from 817 marijuana-related admissions in her first year in office to 137 marijuana-related admissions in her last year in office as state's attorney general. For context, marijuana sales and possession remained illegal under state law during Harris' time as attorney general. California voters legalized recreational marijuana in 2016, the same year Harris was elected to the U.S. Senate and left her attorney general post. Also, now this goes to your point, Reecie, and some things that I've been saying as well. Also, as attorney general, Kamala Harris would not have personally prosecuted marijuana cases. Those cases would have been handled by lower level state attorneys. And this is really what Tulsi Gabbard misrepresented, because she just basically took all of the marijuana convictions during the time that she was attorney general and just attributed that to her office, when the overwhelming majority were prosecuted at the lower level by locally elected attorney generals. I mean, district attorneys, locally elected district attorneys. Okay. Go ahead and add context, anything you want to add to that.
No. I think we covered it.
Okay. All right. Now, so people, once again, check out this article here from PolitiFact. .com. Now, this is one of the free articles. I'm going to show you one quickly here from the Mercury News. It's a really good article, but they want you to pay for it. So when I'm done with this broadcast, I got to pay $1 for this. I ain't have time to go through and setting up passwords and all this stuff. I was trying to.
Yeah, but I think we covered it. I mean, the Mercury News article covered what we already said too.
Yeah, but I like to show people evidence.
Oh, okay. We're going to be here a while, and I only got an hour, Mike. I ain't trying to tell you how
no. I want people to go read this later. I'm not.
Okay.
But the name of this article from PolitiFact is where Tulsi Gabbard's attacks on Kamala Harris' record as California prosecutor on target. So people can go read that. And then also the one from Mercury News. The name of that one is Here's How Kamala Harris Really Prosecuted Marijuana Cases. Here's how Kamala Harris really prosecuted marijuana cases. And that was updated August 6, 2024. So people can check that one out as well. Okay, now you talked about how did you put it? Kamala Harris did not oversee California prisons. Okay.
Yes, this is a big one.
You talked about that, and that deals with the Bureau of Prisons in the state of California, and people saying, oh, she was in control of that and sent all these black men to prison. Talk about that for a minute, please.
So, okay, so the California prison system is the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitations, the CDCR. The person who is over that is the secretary of the CDCR. The secretary is an appointee by the governor of California. And so during Kamala Harris's tenure, there were three, as attorney general, there were three different CDCR secretaries. All of those people were appointed by the governor. Governor Jerry Brown was the governor during her both terms. She did not go through the full second term, but she was elected twice to attorney general. And so a lot of times when people talk about different policies, they talk about it as though Vice President Kamala Harris set these policies. Oh, Kamala Harris kept people locked up. Kamala Harris did X, Y, and Z. Now I'll tell you what is accurate about the extent of her involvement was the fact that the state agencies and departments in the state of California, they go to the attorney general to represent them in court. Okay, they can't call up Johnny Cochran or Lisa Bloom or some other powerful attorney, Benjamin Crump. Okay, they don't call up private attorneys. The attorney general represents the departments in the state, and so their client is the CDCR in some cases, it's other state agencies in other cases. And so what was going on during the time Kamala Harris was the attorney general, and actually it started before she was the attorney general, is the state of California was under federal supervision because there was overcrowding in the California prisons. So somebody sued. It was like Brown versus Plato was the lawsuit. And as a result of the court findings, they were under supervision to reduce overcrowding in prisons. That's not to say that they were supposed to just let people out of jail, but they were supposed to figure out how to house the prisoner, the people who were incarcerated. And so that's one part of it, right? Then you had legislation in 2011 that was called the Public Safety Realignment Act, which was about reducing the population overall, not just how you're housing the prison, how you're doing prison crowding or whatever. So one of the things that people have said is that she's kept people past their sentences. That's not true. She wouldn't have the ability to do that. She's not the person who is dictating release or whatever as attorney general. She's not overseeing the prisoners. The CDCR does not report to her in any way, shape, or form. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so it'd be the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. That would determine when people are released from prison.
Yes, they are the ones who handle the administration of imprisonment or release, right? Not the attorney general. So a couple of things have come out of this, right? You might have heard, and I think actually Tulsi Gabbard tried to say something along these lines at that time as well, that Kamala Harris kept people locked up so that they can have firefighters. All right. So that is completely false. All right. That is completely false. Now, it's a little bit of a labor layered situation, right? So what happened was, again, so the CDCR is under federal supervision. One of the things that was put forth is there had been this program, a firefighters program. Now, the firefighters program is very dangerous work. And so they got paid basically slave wages. But one of the perks was they had the opportunity to get time knocked off of their sentence for participating in this program. Right. And so as a result of this federal supervision, the courts said, hey, you're already giving good time credits for people participating in this fire department, this firefighter force. Why not extend that same good time credit to people who are in other work programs within the prison system? And part of what they said was you can do that to the extent that it doesn't deplete the firefighters force, right? I'm giving you a 50,000 foot view of it.
No, that's fine.
So really what it was is that the CDCR slow walked implementing these good time credits for other workers, not for the people who were volunteering for the firefighter force, but for all of the other ones, people who were doing janitorial work and things like that. The courts wanted them to apply that to that group, and the CDCR did not want to apply that to that group. So there was a Deputy Attorney General, Patrick McKinney, who, representing the CDCR's position, filed a court filing to basically say, hey, if we extend these credits to other programs, then nobody's going to want to participate in this firefighter program because they can get the same perks for far less dangerous work. And the court said, that's BS. We're not going for that. You need to implement these credits across the board. So that is a much more complicated situation. Now, by the way, for what it's worth, Kamala Harris did not know that this person was filing that particular brief. Obviously, she has over 1,000 people working for her. There are thousands of briefs that are filed all the time. When she was alerted to it, she said she didn't agree with it and she would check in to see how it was characterized. Right. But all of that is to say that it is not true that those firefighters were held past their release date. It was not true that those firefighters were withheld from getting the good times credit. What actually happened was the program good time credits were not extended to people outside of the firefighters program by the CDCR. And so the courts forced them to do that after they had dragged their feet. So I know it's still, there's no heroes when you're talking about basically prison slave labor, right? I mean, it's not like, oh, well, that's good. It sucks. These are people that are getting paid $1.50 an hour. They're doing grueling work. And, the best thing for them is that they get to get out of jail earlier. But it's far different of a scenario than these people are waiting, bags packed to get out of jail. And Kamala Harris is like, no, not today. We need you to fight the fires. That is not even remotely in the ballpark of what happened. So again, it was not Kamala Harris's position. It was a filing by her Deputy Attorney General. Unbeknownst to her, the filing failed and nobody was kept in prison past their sentences. It wouldn't have been the case that it was never a matter of keeping people in jail longer than their sentence. It was always a matter of who gets to get these good time credits. That's what was the issue at hand. But it's been mischaracterized because I just spent 10 minutes explaining that. And so people don't take 10 minutes to explain it, and people don't want to write to that level of nuance. So it just becomes this much bigger thing that sounds easier to describe in 20 seconds as opposed to 10 minutes.
Right. I know this week she's releasing her economic policy, and CNBC has an article about that for people saying she doesn't have any policies. She doesn't have any policies. Well, you should go read Donald Trump's policies. Her not releasing policies is much better than Donald Trump's policies, is much better than Project 2025, which is 920 pages. And actually, when people read the article from politifact.com that I put up, she had 5,000 people that worked for her in her attorney general's office. Right. Yeah. So it's like no attorney general knows every single thing that's taking place in their office.
And can I just add that?
Go ahead. Sure.
People don't understand this. The district attorney, the attorney general, these are executives. Okay. These are not employees. They are executives, the same way you have a CEO. She had thousands of employees. Her operating budget was several $100 million. And the Department of Justice, the California Department of Justice, handles a wide variety of things. Their focus is not solely on criminal law. They have civil law. She created the Bureau of Children's Justice when she was the Attorney General. During that time frame, people don't remember, and they don't put that context back to her time frame, but they were dealing with the homeowner mortgage crisis. So she was working on things like getting the Homeowner Bill of Rights passed, going after the banks. She got a $10 billion settlement for $10 or $20 billion. $20
billion.
So, yeah, $20 billion. It's been so long. I like some of these numbers aren't. I know all the stuff, but the some.
I know you know it.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that now it's easy for people to nitpick these very small, niche, like obscure things and blow it up to be the biggest thing in the world. But I promise you, at the time, you would much rather have had your attorney general focusing on trying to keep people from getting foreclosed on and evicted from their homes, and trying to make sure that people are not preyed upon by bankers and mortgagers and things like that. And so there was a lot of stuff happening in the country and in the state in 2016 when she became, actually 2010, when she became the attorney general, and so on and so forth. So those were the kinds of things that she was focused on, not these little nit stories that, yeah, if you pull it out, it sounds bad, but that's not the only thing that she had to work on.
Exactly. And then, you know, from the 1500 figure from Tulsi Gabbard, then people said it was 1500 black men. Well, when you look at the breakdown of the numbers, it didn't separate it by race. So where do you get 1500 black men convicted on marijuana possession?
It's the white supremacy of it. Like I said, it's just people say, oh, she locked up all these black men and it's like, oh yeah, we believe that because y'all just think that black men are criminals. But to that point, I do want to say that, you know, listen, black people are disproportionately imprisoned everywhere, right? Our numbers of imprisonment are always higher than our population percentage. But if you're talking about what happened over the course of her tenure, the black woman incarceration rate, or population, not rate, I don't want to say rates, but the black woman incarcerated population dropped by 50%. The black male incarcerated population dropped by 25%. And so you had fewer black women and black men in jail when she left than they were in prison than there were when she came into prison. And so this whole idea that she's out there rounding up black people to go lock them up is just quantitatively false.
Right. But at the same time, Donald Trump in Wisconsin about 3 months ago said that he would give police immunity against criminal prosecution for doing their jobs. He wants to give them basically 100% immunity. Okay. And then at the National Association for Black Journalists, for the interview that they did with Trump, Rachel Scott from ABC News asked him, well, no, it's the other sister who specifically asked him about the case of Sonia Massey. Okay. And he backpedaled from it because she said, how would your immunity from criminal prosecution work for a police officer in the case like this right here who killed Sonia Massey? Okay, he really didn't want to answer the question.
Well, he kind of did, though. He kind of was like, I mean, if it was an accident, he still would have immunity. Like, he still kind of, he wasn't like, oh, no, that guy should definitely be in jail. He was like, oh, she had water and, well, maybe people are scared, which basically is what they've been using this entire time to get out of being prosecuted. Oh, I was scared. And, it doesn't matter if it was rational that you were scared. It only mattered that you were scared. So he kind of furthered that rationale, which has allowed cops to get away with killing black people.
Yeah, and the other thing, it's important for people to realize he nominated 2 attorney generals, Jeff Sessions and William Barr, who were against criminal justice reform.
Oh yeah,
I want people to understand this. And William Barr said he did not think systemic racism in policing existed. Okay, so this is what you're gonna get. You're gonna get even worse if he becomes president again. Okay.
Yeah. And to be clear, when somebody says that they don't think systemic racism exists in the criminal justice system, what they're saying is that they believe that Black people are inherently more criminal. And the disparities that we see are a result of our inherent criminality, not a result of the fact that enforcement is disproportionate, the fact that prosecution is disproportionate, and the fact that sentencing is disproportionate. All of that stuff doesn't exist. It's just that we're more criminal and we commit worse crimes.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. I want to go to this this next one here. Kamala Harris fought to keep a bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way. And this is also from the article. This came up during the debate back in 2019, and this dealt with let's see. Okay, we talked about prison labor. Okay, this one right here. Let me flip over to the screen here. I want everybody to see this here. And then I'm just going to introduce this and then let you go ahead and flesh this out. Okay, so Harris fought to keep a bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way. A March article by Business Insider detailed then San Francisco DA Kamala Harris pushed in 2004 to increase cash bail. Quote, shortly thereafter, San Francisco's Superior Court judges moved to sharply increase cash bail calls for weapons-related felony charges, including assault with a firearm and the sale of machine guns, end quote, according to the article. It adds that as Senator Kamala Harris, she has introduced bipartisan legislation to encourage states to reform their cash bail systems so that lower income people are not kept in jail as a result of their inability to pay steep bail costs. Okay, so talk about that a little bit here and what happened when she was San Francisco District Attorney.
So this is where people completely remove nuance from the situation. She has always been about making bail more equitable. However, what she was pushing for was an increase in cash bail for exactly what they said, weapons-related felony charges. Right. So she did not want people who were arrested for committing crimes with firearms to be able to get out of jail for cheaper. I don't think that's an unreasonable position to take. You know, a lot of people forget what kind of environment in terms of crime it was back in that time frame. To this day, I mean, if you go to San Francisco right now, they have people who they walk into the 7-Eleven, they come out, their windows is busted. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I think that she was being strategic and saying everybody should not be paying an arm and a leg. You shouldn't be like a Sandra Bland who gets pulled over. Now, I'm not saying that was her context at the time, because obviously Sandra Bland happened much later. But to give an example, you shouldn't be in jail because you can't make cash bail over stealing a cigarette or for failing to signal. But if you are knocking people upside the head and you mugging people and you are robbing people with a gun, then maybe you need to be in doggone jail, you know, or you shouldn't be able to just get out of jail as easily as a person who has a parking ticket. So there was that, right? And I think part of it is, I'll be honest, you know, she had to balance, how do you really tackle the root cause of crime? How do you really take out some of the ways that the justice system is harsher on Black people, while also recognizing that people do want to see violent criminals off the streets. People don't want to be victims of these crimes either. They want something done. So there was a balancing act that had to be done. Now, if you're a purist and you say no cash bail should ever be increased for any reason for any time, okay, then that's fine. I understand if you don't agree with that. But in most pragmatic situations, there's a balancing act that has to happen. And so I think if she's going to balance the scales between people who are committing nonviolent offenses and getting more support around lowering cash bail or eliminating cash bail for them, and then the people who are out there with guns pulling them on people had to go to jail a little bit longer, I don't have a problem with that trade-off.
Right. But the other thing that's important for people to understand, and I think people understand it better now, the role of a prosecutor, because you have a criminal running for president, Donald Trump. You have a convicted felon running for president who incited an insurrection on January 6th. And it was the FBI who investigated those domestic terrorists, and it was the Department of Justice who prosecuted those domestic terrorists. And it's about 1,000 people who've been convicted or they have pled to or pled guilty. So this time around, people really see the need for prosecutors. And because back in 2019, you were dealing more with this was before George Floyd, but 2020, 2019, when she was running for president, that was before George Floyd, because George Floyd was killed May 25th, 2020. Okay, so this debate took place in 2019. So people were saying things like Kamala the cop, things like that. But the other thing that people miss is that when Black people are victims of crimes, victims of violent crimes, rape, murder, things like this, you're saying you don't want a prosecutor to get justice for the victims? The prosecutors go prosecute the guilty party. How do you get justice for the victims? Okay, outside of civil court. No, you have to, when Black people get killed, you don't want somebody to go to prison. That's the prosecutor's job.
And that was something that she talked about when she came into office. There was a backlog of unsolved homicides, right? There were 75 cases that were unsolved, and she had Black mothers in her office begging her, saying, nobody cares that my son is dead, and somebody has to do something. But you bring up a good point. I mean, Black people are, in addition to being disproportionately targeted by the justice system, we're also disproportionately victims of crimes too. And so what she did as district attorney, in particular, she did a lot around victim services. She did a lot around, for instance, helping families whose family members were victims of violent crime, but for whatever reasons, they could not get the state assistance. And so in San Francisco, she established, getting assistance for those families. She created programs around trauma services for children, around helping people get their homes cleaned up after, violent crimes or whatever kind of crimes have been committed. And so she did so much around legal advocacy for victims. She did a lot around neighborhood legal fairs for people who were having issues. Everything that the district attorney does, everything the attorney general does, is not all about crime. It's about the law, right? Law enforcement. And so she did a lot of work that does not get talked about at all in terms of helping the victims. And one thing I neglected to mention earlier but she was around, she helped spearhead the San Francisco Reentry Council. That was one of her initiatives as district attorney, and that was collaborating with other agencies. And that's partly credited for why the incarceration rates in San Francisco went down. Because if you tackle recidivism, you tackle how people reenter into society, tackling that root cause, which was the premise of Vice President Kamala Harris's work around Back on Track, the Reentry Council, the Division of Recidivism and Reentry as Attorney General, then crime goes down. So that's really, there's plenty of evidence behind that, and the numbers just tell that story.
Exactly. And let me say this also. She also co-wrote the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that no Republicans in the House voted for. That bill passed 220 to 212 in the House of Representatives. No Republicans in the House voted for it. And it was the Black Republican, Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina. He was the one who blocked it in the Senate. Yep. Okay.
Exactly right.
So people really have to understand this. And Donald Trump is not advocating for a George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Not only that, his first attorney general, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, one of the first things he did when he became attorney general was said we need to take a hands-off approach to policing. And he stopped the investigations into the police departments, the patterns and practices investigations in the police departments. There were about 23 or 24 under the Obama administration. There was only one under the Trump administration.
Right. Okay? Absolutely. And that was something that she did too when she was attorney general. She actually opened up to pattern and practices civil rights investigations into two counties. There was Kern County and the other one, it's not jumping out at me right now, but these were counties that definitely had some issues with it. And so there's all of these receipts from And when you contrast the two records, it's not just a contrast in their rhetoric, there's actual contrast in what the work is that they've done. So when I've heard people say, well, where did she stand on George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? What do you mean where she stood on it? He wrote the doggone thing. Okay.
They don't read. They don't read.
Don't. And parts of that, because, you know, like you said, Senator Tim Scott kind of scuttled it, the prior congressional session. But part of it has been implemented through the Department of Justice. The same thing that Vice President Kamala Harris did when she was the Attorney General. She implemented body cameras for DOJ agents and things like that. And so our Department of Justice now, the federal level, body cameras are mandated. They ban no-knock warrants at the federal level, chokeholds, things like that. So the things that were part of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that they weren't able to enact through legislation, to the extent that they can enact it through executive policy, they have done those things. Yeah,
President Biden signed an executive order on the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd, May 25th, 2022, instituting some of those policies that within his Article 2 powers from the U.S. Constitution, because as I explained to people, the majority of the control over policing is not at the federal level, is at the state and local, based upon the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So a lot of these people running around, I saw the video that you did dealing with Amanda Seals and that nonsense she was putting out. I stopped following Amanda Seals on Instagram because she does not know what she's talking about. She needs to stick to comedy and acting. She does not know what she's talking about when it comes to politics. Go ahead if you want.
My thing is, I think everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I think that where I question you is when you say that you have these priorities, you have these things that you actually care about, but you're not paying attention to the work being done behind that. Then that's where I'm like, ooh, do you really care? Because if you care, you would be paying attention. If you paid attention, then you would see all the evidence right in front of you. And so I think that I constantly find, particularly when it comes to Vice President Kamala Harris, that every time I listen to people, okay, check, they're rattling things off that are important. And I'm like, check.
Right.
But when I say that, it's like, oh, okay, now what? Now what do I say? Then it comes out, I just don't like it. Okay, well, we could just skip all this other part. But if you look at the actual issues, she checks so many of them, and she doesn't check them for the sake of checking them. She checks them in the sense of the work has been done over the course of her 20 years of being an elected official.
Right. And, you know, we can have our own opinions, but we can't have our own facts. And I see a lot of people just making stuff up and not even understanding how law works.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And that brings me to, I'm gonna go to this next topic here. So
did you finish the PolitiFact article? Because there was one thing I wanted to address in there. Is the whole Kevin Cooper thing.
Oh yeah, that's fine. You go ahead and address that.
Okay.
I got that up here also. I wasn't sure if we had enough time to deal with that. Yeah. So that this right here, I have it up on the screen. Because I know you got to get to the Black women's call and I got to get the Roland's call. Harris blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. Now, this was an allegation that Representative Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii made at the 2019 presidential debate. Go ahead and deal with that.
This one burns me up inside for so many reasons. First of all, it is absolutely untrue. It is flat out unequivocally untrue. All right. So let me break this down a couple of ways, right? Number one, the case of Kevin Cooper was one in which he was on death row. He had actually exhausted all of his appeals before Kamala Harris was ever Attorney General. So the Attorney General's office is involved with appeals courts. As it says right here, he was convicted in 1983. All right. So before she became Attorney General, he had exhausted all of his appeals. He was granted a stay of execution by then Governor Schwarzenegger. Now, mind you, the Attorney General at the time while all this stuff was going on was Jerry Brown, who then became the governor. So Kamala Harris's office had zero involvement. This isn't one of those cases where I'm like, well, the Attorney General is supposed to defend the state in terms of these appeals. It ain't even that. She literally had zero involvement because the Attorney General does not have any involvement in clemency cases. Now, if the governor requests, oh, can you do this or can you do that? That's different. But the Attorney General does not lead the governor on clemency issues. So I think her team messed up in responding to this, because Nicholas Kristof did an article and he blamed her, which is absurd. Because if I've done the research on this, there is no contemporaneous reporting around Kevin Cooper's case that ever mentioned Kamala Harris. The first time her name even came up was in the context of Nicholas Kristof's article. It says right there, where he somehow attached her to the Kevin Cooper case, and her team, I think, did her a disservice by allowing her to say that she feels awful about it, she didn't know about it, as opposed to saying, this ain't got nothing to do with me. He had already exhausted all of his appeals. Now, it was actually Xavier Becerra, who was the next attorney general, and somebody running against him was trying to hold this against him as well. He said, hold up. This is a matter for the governor. This is a clemency matter. I ain't got nothing to do with that. So I was like, oh, so that's actually the correct answer, that this is the clemency issue for the governor. So what ended up happening was he was eventually granted additional DNA testing. Now, he had already had 2 DNA testings, right? That did not exonerate him. So Gavin Newsom ordered additional testing, right? Now, fast forward to 2023. So this was, all this stuff was stated in 2020, in 2019. All this stuff was coming out in 2019. All these people were putting it forth that he was wrongfully convicted, that there was evidence to exonerate him. All they had to do was order the testing, and Vice President Kamala Harris went back in time. Now all of a sudden is culpable for him not getting this testing. That does it not say Gavin Newsom ordered? It didn't say Xavier Becerra, who was the AG at the time. It said Gavin Newsom ordered the additional testing. In 2023, the results of that testing came back, and the testing results showed, quote unquote, overwhelming evidence of guilt. It did not exonerate him. It showed overwhelming physical blood evidence linking him to the crime. Now, if you still want to believe he's innocent, that's fine. But the evidence that she was supposedly withholding that exonerated him actually further incriminated him. She was not withholding it, and he's still in jail. So I've seen now videos say that he was exonerated and he was let out of jail and he stayed in jail longer because of her. He's literally still in jail right now. He was literally incriminated more by the DNA test. And that's why you ain't here. Have you heard Kim Kardashian talking about Kevin Cooper since 2023? No. All these people that jumped on the bandwagon and said that he was innocent and all he needed was DNA testing, you ain't heard nothing from him. So the idea that she kept this man in prison when she had nothing to do with his appeals, she had nothing to do with clemency, and the evidence that they said would exonerate him, incriminated him more, is absolutely bananas.
Right, exactly. Okay,
and I'll send you the link. Even if I have to get off, I'll send you the link, because I'm telling you right now, I've been seeing the videos, and sometimes they'll say Kevin Cooper, sometimes they'll say innocent man on death row. Either way, they're talking about Kevin Cooper, and I'm not judge, jury, and executioner. I wasn't on the jury, okay? But what I do know is that the reporting says that the DNA testing that was ordered by Gavin Newsom further incriminated him and showed overwhelming evidence of guilt. That's what I know from the report. Right,
exactly. All right. Lastly, I want to get to this and anything you want to squeeze in. So there was a good article recently from Newsweek.com, and it deals with Vice President Kamala Harris and her stance on reparations. And I want to talk about this quickly because I know you did a video, a short video dealing with the 2019 interview with Natasha Alford for thegrio.com, and you show like a 20-second segment from that video, as opposed to the 5 or 6 second segment that mischaracterizes what she was saying. But everybody, please read this article. Please do some research. Stop listening to these Simple Simon ass people on social media. And let me just say this: these disinformation agents, a lot of these pages on social media, you don't know who runs them. Okay, a lot of, and when you have these disinformation agent pages and you don't know who runs it, I run it. You see me all the time. This is my page. I own this. Okay, you got pages out here where you got people from other countries running the page.
Absolutely.
On Facebook, go to it's called Page Transparency, and it tells you the countries that the people and the moderators live in that run the pages. When you got a page that just puts out stuff about Democrat, they did this, they did that, and they don't have nothing about what Trump did, they don't have nothing about the skullduggery of Republicans, that's some disinformation right there. Okay, so this piece right here, this is from July 28th, 2024, what Kamala Harris has said about reparations for Black people. Newsweek.com. Everybody read this. And let me close this out. So it talks about her advocating for policy, saying that I think there has to be some form of, I'm going to zoom in on this here. I think there has to be some form of reparations, and we could discuss what that is. But look, we're looking at more than 200 years of slavery. She said, we're looking at almost 100 years of Jim Crow. We're looking at legalized segregation, and in fact, segregation on so many levels that exist today based on race, and there has not been any kind of intervention done understanding the harm and the damage that occurred to correct the course. And so we are seeing the effects of all those years play out still today, end quote. So go ahead and flesh this out, and you could talk some about what you dealt with when you spoke with, you were interviewed by Natasha Alfred from thegrill.com.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about disinformation, one of the most insidious things about disinformation is that it really preys on people's short attention span and intellectual, the lack of intellectual curiosity and lack of critical thinking. Because when somebody puts something in front of you that is 3 seconds long and it's meant to, and it's inflammatory, and I sent you in the private chat the link to the Kevin Cooper story, by the way. So you know, it usually is stripping the context of the situation to make it look more inflammatory. So there was a question that Natasha Alford was asking her about reparations, Black agenda, or whatever. Right. And what she said was, so am I going to say that I'm only going to do something for Black people? No. That was 5 seconds of what she said before, and after that, the whole actual context was she was saying what benefits Black people benefits that entire community, which is unequivocally false. It's true that racism has an actual economic detrimental impact to our country. It has a detrimental impact in terms of our healthcare costs, which is something that are basically pooled, right? It has a detrimental impact into our economic growth and viability. And so her point was absolutely accurate. Now, the thing about it that annoys me is that, you know, people act like she didn't have a Black agenda when she actually did. But what was very clever about her was that she recognized, oh, am I freezing up? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, my camera stopped, messed up a little bit, but you can still hear me. So
yeah, go ahead, keep talking.
But what ended up happening is she recognized what we've seen under this administration as a result of the right-wing Supreme Court that Trump has gotten through, which is that if you put Black in neon letters, you're going to have things be shut down. So we've seen that with the Fearless Fund, where now the Fearless Fund has been unable to give out grants specifically for Black women. We've seen where the Minority Business Administration can no longer make things specific to minorities or based around race and things like that. And so what she would try to do was she would try to target Black policies by understanding how have Black people been disproportionately impacted. So for instance, she made redlining communities were eligible for business grants when she had her 2019 platform. People who have Pell Grants, people who were eligible for Pell Grants in school, something that 75% of Black students were eligible for. Those kinds of criteria are things that she used to try to target Black people, because if you say Black, it's going to be overturned. We're not allowed to have racially specific things for only one race, with the exception of Native Americans. That's it.
Well, those are based upon treaties for Native Americans.
Yes, there we go.
hitting on that point. Let me show this. Now, I don't know if you know this, Reecie. I did a presentation March 2nd, 2024 for the Detroit Reparations Task Force. They asked me to come in and do a historical presentation, also dealing with law. Based upon Title VI, for all you simple Simon ass people out there that don't understand law, but choose to run your mouth anyway. Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Section 601, non-discrimination and fairly assisted programs, bans race-based policies at the federal level. It's illegal to have policies for only one race of people. Okay. And all you have to do is Google, why are race-based policies illegal at the federal level? And you know what comes up? This right here from the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Go to archives.gov. That's the official website of the U.S. National Archives. Read the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So you got all these people out here saying we want policies specifically for African Americans. I've been on a committee to write an executive order here for the city of Detroit. That's illegal.
Yep.
And you got people out here putting out stupid ass black agendas, and none of this stuff is going to be implemented because they don't even understand law. And what I told the Detroit Reparations Task Force is for the city level and the federal level, do not put the term reparations on anything you actually want to get passed, especially if the majority of the people who have to vote for it are white, because it's going to be heavily attacked by conservatives. It's going to be attacked by Republicans. If they struck down affirmative action in college admissions, you think they're not going to attack reparations? If they struck down Joe Biden's executive order on student loan forgiveness, that would have disproportionately helped African Americans, but it would have helped a lot of white people too.
And they did that the attorney general sued specifically on the basis that it would disproportionately impact black people because they use Pell Grant eligibility, which is something that disproportionately impacts black people. The same way that when it came, a lot of people are mentioning in the chat, what they did to sue around blocking aid for black farmers. It did not say black farmers get this aid. It said disadvantaged. But disadvantaged was code for black, and because that coding happened, that is why it was overturned. Okay,
that's why it was attacked.
Yeah, that's why it was attacked, and that's why it was blocked in the courts. And even with the settlement that's now being paid off of $2 billion, which is different than what the administration and the Democrats tried to do with the $5 billion they're trying to get to black farmers. JD Vance was just on, I believe it was ABC News.
Yeah, he was
pointing to this $2 billion settlement for black farmers as evidence of racism, saying that black farmers who had been disproportionately discriminated against, that this is an actual discrimination settlement. By giving them the money in their settlement is racist. And it is unmerited because you should not be giving people things because they're black. I guess you can take things and withhold things and discriminate against people because they're black, but you cannot repair the damage of what has happened to people because they're black. And so this is where we have to be more clever. We have to not just look for black and neon letters. But the last thing I'll say about it is I did not see a groundswell of activation when the child tax credit expired, because it was blocked by Joe Manchin and it was blocked by Republicans. That was something that cut black child poverty in half in 1 year. I didn't see those people who activate strictly around reparations, no vote kind of folks activate around, hey, we just had a year where black child poverty was cut in half. We need to continue that. That's reparations. That's repairing.
You know why they did the same thing? Because those simple Simon ass people don't read. That's why.
There's that.
They don't read and they don't understand law. This political suicide to say if we don't get reparations, we're not going to vote. Republicans don't want your ass voting in the first place.
Like, that's a win for them too.
No Republicans support reparations, not even the black ones. Senator Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, John James from here in Michigan. No Republicans, not even the black ones, support reparations. We have to be more strategic in how we go about this. And this is what I told the Detroit Reparations Task Force. First of all, everybody needs to go read the 74-page executive summary from the California Reparations Task Force from the 1,000-page report, that final report. Okay, because they lay out 12 harms that have happened to African Americans. They admit there were more, and then they lay out 115 policy recommendations to repair the damage of the 12 harms. Take those 115 policy recommendations, create policy at the federal, state, and local level to repair the damage. Don't put look, it's illegal to have policies for one race of people, but you can have policies that disproportionately benefit African Americans. And this is what Senator Kamala Harris was talking about here. I'm not going to play the video because I know you got to run, but everybody go watch this because there's too many people putting this BS out here. And the video is right here on YouTube at thegrio.com's YouTube channel. Senator Kamala Harris shares her agenda for the black community. So anybody says she didn't have a black agenda is a goddamn lie, and you don't do research. Go watch it. Now, this is a 6-minute segment. Go ahead.
And can I say, so I've been putting out, some people are saying, Reecie Receipts, I appreciate you. I appreciate all the nice comments. I'm not responding because I'm trying to say this, but I'm putting out fact sheets. I call it Reecie with the Receipts. And so if you go to ReecieColbert.com/receipts, just put in your email address and then you'll get access to the link that has the receipts. But one of them I did a fact sheet on how this administration has advanced racial equity. I have personally reported at the White House for several of these initiatives, things like what they've done around homeownership appraisal bias, things that they've done around HBCU safety grants. Vice President Kamala Harris has really championed Black maternal mortality. And so the receipts are there in terms of the Black agenda. They've been very, very deliberate about creating racial equity in our system, which our system is systemically racist. And they've tried to reverse that and really evaluate on throughout all of the agencies how to undo the systemic racist barriers that we are experiencing. But one last thing I have to say is it's amazing to me how I know you hear this all the time, Michael. I constantly hear people say, look at what the Asians got. The Asians got a bill. The Asians got a hate crime bill. Where is our hate crime bill? And I said, okay, well, first of all, you trying to fight a battle that we done won decades ago, because anti-Black hate crimes legislation is called the Civil Rights Act of 1968. And then it's been expanded again and again. If you go to the DOJ, they actually have a hate crimes legislation thing on there. What you will not see under hate crimes legislation is what is actually entitled the COVID-19 hate crimes bill, right? It is not called an anti-Asian hate crime.
Right. It's the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. And people can go to congress.gov and read it, just like every other bill that comes out of Congress, you can go read. And it was not race specific. It applies to Black people also. Go ahead.
It was literally assigning a DOJ employee to track data around COVID-19 hate crimes. That's what it is. Okay. And so if you
data tracking, there was data collection. That's it. And it provided some grant money in terms of, hate crimes reporting and things like that. Where we're still every year we at the top, the number one victim of hate crimes. So the website I was telling you about was justice.gov/hate crimes. If you go to that, you will not see COVID-19 Hate Crime Act as hate crimes legislation, because it did not actually create a new protected class. It did not change any actual legislation around how hate crimes are prosecuted or anything like that. It provided some resources for reporting and data collection. That's it. And so I see people tout this so-called anti-Asian hate crime bill as some sort of triumph for the Asian community that we are lacking in. When you had Vice President Kamala Harris, when she was a senator, she actually revived the push for anti-lynching legislation, something that had failed to pass 200 times. And she revived the push for that when she became a senator. Her bill was the very first bill to pass the Senate ever as it relates to anti-lynching.
And so it didn't pass while she was a senator, because Rand Paul ended up filibustering the bill that passed, the version that passed the House. But under the Biden-Harris administration, it passed both chambers of Congress. President Biden put this bill into law. And so that actually did create a new class of how you legislate and prosecute hate crimes. And some people say, well, it wasn't just Black people that got lynched. You know what? I'm through with y'all.
72% of African Americans who were lynched from about 1882 to 1968, something like that. The NAACP has the statistics on their website, the national website. There's about 4,700 lynchings. 72% of them were African Americans. But
right.
Yeah, that was the first anti-lynching bill in 122 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We've been trying to get one for 122 years. Number one. Number two, like I said, it's illegal to have policies for only one race of people, but you can write policies that disproportionately benefit a race of people. Number three, go to congress.gov and read the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. Okay. And it deals with data collection. It didn't give extra protections for Asian Americans. Yeah. And that bill applies to everybody. It dealt with COVID-19 related hate crimes. But you mentioned the Department of Justice. Justice.gov is the U.S. Department of Justice national website. Official website.
And let me correct myself real quick, because I said that it wasn't on there. It is on there now. Last time I checked, last year it wasn't on there, but now it's on there. But it does explain exactly what I said. It's an expediter to review charges, improve reporting. That's it.
Right. Yeah, it dealt with data collection. Now, the first hate crimes act in the history of this country, as you said, 1968, part of the Fair Housing Act signed into law by President Lyndon Baines Johnson as a result of the modern day civil rights movement. And that was largely for Black people. Nobody talks about that. Now, we talk about it. We talked about it on Roland Martin Unfiltered. But the U.S. Department of Justice was created in 1870 during Reconstruction by Congress. And it was largely put in place to protect the new rights for African Americans. Read this article. I deal with this in my classes. Everybody read this article from SmithsonianMag.com. Created 150 years ago, the Justice Department's first mission was to protect Black rights. Okay. And that gives you an education. And then lastly, and I'm going to let you wrap up and let people know how they can get in contact with you and your social media, all of that. I showed this article here from thegrio.com. Now, you talked about equity, the equity initiative. That came from Executive Order 13985 that President Biden signed on his first day in office. Okay, there were 10 executive orders that he signed on his first day in office. One of them was Executive Order 13985, and it dealt with putting in analyzing racism throughout the federal government. And they ended up, the Biden-Harris administration unveiled Thursday a massive government-wide action plan to advance racial equity across 90 federal agencies with more than 300 strategies and commitments laid out by government leaders. People read this article from thegrio.com. Biden-Harris administration unveils government-wide action plans on racial equity. Now, this is from April 14th, 2022. Very few people talk about this. Go ahead, Reecie.
No, it's true. It's true. So I think what this election is about so much, right? And I just want us to have fact-based conversations. I've heard people say, y'all telling me to trust this. I'm not telling you to trust nobody. I'm not telling you to like nobody. Kamala Harris is married. She ain't on the market. So she's not going to be your prom date. She's not going to be the bachelorette giving out roses. Okay. Right. This ain't about your feelings. This is about facts. It's about policy. It's about the trajectory of this country. And it's about contrast, because be clear, there is a true, you have one or the other. You could go third party, they ain't gonna win. But in terms of, it's going to be either Kamala Harris's vision that's going to be enacted. And for people who say, well, what's her policy? She's releasing it this week, but she's also been the vice president for the past 3 years. So if you want to know the policy, just look at what they've been doing already. Hello. But the reality is it's going to be Kamala Harris's vision and what she can enact based on whether we give her a Democratic majority in the Senate, a Democratic majority in the House, whether more Democrats become governors and in one of these, some of these 23 Republican trifectas throughout the country that are screwing people over, what gets enacted is really more so on us than it is on her. But it's either going to be her vision or it's going to be Donald Trump / Project 2025's vision. So you determine what you want. The receipts, luckily for us, this is not a theoretical conversation about I don't know what they say this, but we don't know what's going to happen. We literally know what Vice President Kamala Harris has done, has championed for the past 20 years. And we literally know what Donald Trump has done when he was the president. And he's telling us what he will do. You mentioned it earlier, immunity for cops. He's talking about, furthering his attack on reproductive rights. There are so many things that they're going to do that are that's detrimental to our community. You may not get everything. Yep. There you go.
Firing 50,000 federal employees, and African Americans make up 18.4% of federal employees.
Yep.
Okay. And replacing them with Trump loyalists. Go ahead.
So there's a very much a huge dichotomy in what we're facing. You be the judge, but all I ask is that if you're going to come with a critique, have it be fact-based. And when you're corrected on the facts, be open to the correction. If somebody can correct me, okay, all right, it is what it is. I could be corrected if what you're saying is true and what I'm saying is wrong. And I know how to correct myself too. So I just ask that people really look at what's at stake. You're not picking a prom date. You're not picking a mate. You are picking a person that is going to appoint, I believe it's 4,000 government appointees. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 4,000. 4,000 that the president appoints. Okay. And that's going to dictate how every agency runs. And so you make the choice. If you want to nitpick here and nitpick there and just pick the lowest hanging fruits, to determine how you're going to vote, that's your prerogative. But we have big fish to fry in this election. So y'all can follow me. ReecieColbert.com is my website. If you want to know about a lot of the data that I have on Kamala Harris, I'm putting together more fact sheets beyond just Kamala Harris as well. You can go to ReecieColbert.com/receipts and give me your email address and you get my receipts. Right now I have 6 of them up. 4 on Kamala Harris specifically. 1 is on the administration's advancing racial equity, and then 1 is on Vice Presidential nominee Governor Tim Walz. So that's what I have right now. Reecie Colbert on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and that's it. So
all right.
I feel like I'm missing up. And
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. There you go. Yeah.
Yep. Reecie Colbert on Instagram. That's REECIE.
Yeah.
You mentioned advancing equity, and I'm gonna wrap up with this because I know you got to run. So this is you hear me talk about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and Roland would never pull this up and show it on the damn screen. This is at whitehouse.gov. Fact sheet. The Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country. This is a 36-page document that takes you through the policies of the Biden-Harris administration and shows you how these policies are benefiting and helping the African American community. Overwhelmingly, Republicans are against these policies and overwhelmingly they voted against these policies as well. So it's not only an election is not only about what someone can do for you, it's also understanding how to protect gains that have been made and how to block and stop what other people are trying to do to you as well. So people read this at whitehouse.gov. They have a new version that came out in 2024 that's boiled down to like 9 pages. This one is the full one, and it takes you all these policies. All right, Reecie, go ahead. I know you got to run.
No, that's it. And I haven't said it in a while because the energy of the election has kind of shifted so much to be so much more aspirational and positive. But I still have to remind people that our citizenship is on the ballot. You know, when J.D. Vance, I just mentioned him earlier, was talking about they want to deport over 1 million people in the first year, and they're holding signs for mass deportation. Be clear, that is not just so-called illegal immigrants, okay? Those people don't give a damn about your citizenship status. Okay.
Right.
And so when you have laws that are passed in multiple states now that allow the police to arrest you under the suspicion that you are an illegal immigrant, and there's no penalty if they're wrong with that, that means your citizenship is on the ballot, because that means that you have to walk around with your papers. And then if somebody looks at your papers and they say, well, I don't even think this is real, then you gonna be in jail. Okay. Because people who are actual legal citizens get arrested for citizenship all the time, for under citizenship, you know, charges or whatever. And they expanded, I believe, under Trump, where the border, right, the border zone where you can operate and enforce border crossings and all that kind of stuff. So I think people underestimate how vulnerable our own citizenship is under a Trump administration. And it ain't about whether you're a citizen or not. It's going to come down to whether somebody wants to F with you that day and use the fact that they want to say you're not a citizen as a pretext. Black people, we know everything about pretext. Pretext, stop and frisk, pretext, driving while black. All of these things become a pretext for messing with us. So be very careful about falling for the xenophobia, falling for the anti-immigrant rhetoric, because they don't believe that we belong here any more than they believe that these migrants belong here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Reecie, look, I know you got to run. So thanks for coming on today. We have to do this again. Yes. Much success to you. And you got to have me on your show sometimes too.
Absolutely. We'd love to.
When does your show air? The Reecie Colbert Show on Sirius XM. When is it air?
It's Saturdays. My show is every Saturday, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, live. I take calls, 866-801-8255. So if you're ever listening, you can call in too, Michael.
Okay. All right. We'll do. All right. Take care, Reecie.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Peace.
You too.
All right, everybody. So that was Reecie Colbert, the one and only Reecie Colbert. You see her on MSNBC. You see her on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You hear her on Sirius XM. She's also on the Clay Kane Show on Sirius XM as well. So she has her own show, but she's also on the Clay Kane Show on Sirius XM as well. Right before I let her go, I showed you this article here. I've posted about this on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, before. This is from Thursday, July 11th, 2024. Trump claims not to know who is behind Project 2025. A CNN review found at least 140 people who worked for him are involved. Okay. And he knows Kevin Roberts. He spoke for the Heritage Foundation in 2022. Washington Post has an article showing a picture of the two of them together on a plane together, headed to a Heritage Foundation conference. And in this article, it says many people Trump knows quite well are behind it. The Project 2025. 6 former cabinet secretaries helped write or collaborated on the 900-page playbook for a second Trump term published by the Heritage Foundation. 4 individuals Trump nominated as ambassadors were also involved, along with several enforcers of his controversial immigration crackdown, and about 20 pages are credited to his first deputy chief of staff. In fact, at least 140 people who worked in the Trump administration had a hand in Project 2025, a CNN review found, including more than half of the people listed as authors, editors, and contributors to Mandate for Leadership, the project's extensive manifesto for overhauling the executive branch of the government. And this is their plan for the first 180 days of a possible Trump administration. What do they have planned for the other 3.5 years of a possible Trump administration? Okay. This is why he has to be stopped at the ballot box. Now, if you like this type of information, be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register for the online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Register for the online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Sundays is Black resistance movements from Christopher Columbus to the Haitian Revolution and the Black Power movement, 1492 to 1968. This is a 10-week online course, and we go through and look at history leading up to the Civil War. We look at hundreds of years of history, and we look at what happens to us after slavery ends, and we look at the Jim Crow era, Reconstruction, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power movement, Great Migration, and and look at history, look at the laws and policies put in place that brought us to where we are today to understand where we need to go from here. Okay. And then the first class that I teach, and I teach this one on Saturdays, is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Now, this class we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. This is a 12-week online course. For both of these classes, we do the sessions live. All the classes are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. I have my class lesson plan here. So it walks you through each the topics for each class. You can each class session. You can download the class lesson plan here also. Okay. So the classes are on sale right now, $80, regularly $130. We have a bundle pack where you get both courses for $120. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content now. Okay. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content now. You don't have to be present in class. You can just watch it at your own pace. And even after the course is over with, you can go back and you'll still have full access. You can watch it anytime. The content is PG-13, so you can use this with your children. It's not, I don't do a lot of cursing or anything like that. It's not overly vulgar. It's very visual. There are 80 to 100 articles that we go through and look at. There are over 200 slides in my class. There are 15 book references as well. And usually I show you the books on the screen, the book references on the screen. Also, I show you excerpts of interviews I've done with some of our scholars like Professor James Small, Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, Anthony Browder, Tony Browder, Renoku Rashidi, and others. Okay. So I've been teaching this class on and off since 2017, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade. I developed both of these classes. I'm a historian. I've been studying 34 years. So you're never going to look at history the same way. Your understanding of politics is directly related to your understanding of history. So this information is going to totally blow you away. You can support us also through, so registering for the classes, that supports us, that helps us to financially support us, to help us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay the bills, etc. You can also support us through Cash App and PayPal, because all this stuff does not happen for free. You can support us through Cash App or PayPal, $, the AHN show through Cash App, $, the AHN show through Cash App. And that's our official Cash App account. Now, these are some fake African History Network Cash App accounts. I've identified 5 of them out here. They've been stealing money from us. I'm still trying to get them shut down. When you click on this link here, it takes you to our QR code for the African History Network as well for Cash App. Okay. And then here's our PayPal link right above that. You can click on that also. So if you want to support us, $5, $10, $15, $25, $50, $100 or more, that definitely helps. Okay. Because it takes a lot to do the type of research that I do and pay for all of these services. Listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, normally 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We did it today earlier. We'll do a rebroadcast at 9 p.m. today. I did 4 hours of radio and Facebook Live with WBLS today, Brother Fatin Muhammad, open lines. We did that 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. Okay. 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Facebook Live is on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. So I shared it there. And we talked about the election, Kamala Harris versus Trump. We got into a deep discussion about politics and history, things of that nature. So go check that out also. All right. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my personal page, Michael Imhotep. You can like our posts, share them, post your comments as well as on our videos, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, on YouTube. Okay. And subscribe there, like our posts, comment as well. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. Watch me Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hopefully he'll stop interrupting me. And hopefully on his Win with Black Men call, he'll get some Sigmas on there. I've been telling Roland, you got to get some Sigmas on there. Okay, Blue Fire Go Mob. Right now it's corrects wrong behavior.